The book I chose for my book review is called The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Break through the blocks and win your inner creative battles. Book review by Aaron Esplin. So Pressfield describes any creative person, writers, artists, innovators. They all have a similar block once they get an idea or a desire to create, a deep-rooted fear that keeps them from starting a project often or completing a project. He calls this blockage resistance. And resistance comes in many forms: procrastination, self doubt, defining a project as overly precious, rationalization, to do lists, overindulgences. Pressfield says the more we pay heed to resistance in its many forms, we are acting from Freudian's definition of the ego rather than the self. And resistance knows this, loves this, and will easily start to take over. Resistance doesn't always take form of a bad guy. It can be you over explaining a project and so you don't end up doing it. It can be seeking people's praise. It can be drinking too much, sex, anything that you're trying to seek the self through other means other than being creative. It's not always this big dark monster. I mean, it is, but it doesn't always appear that way. It can be many things that just feel normal. That's why it's so easy to enter our worlds, and it starts to take our creativity. So Pressfield places people into two categories: either an amateur who pays heed to resistance and acts from ego rather than the self, and a pro who ignores resistance and acts from the self. Pressfield says pros are those who listen to their muse, that muses are always out there and they're more in tune with that, and they treat their creativity like a job. Pros get comfortable with failure, with patience. They listen to their muses regularly and are more in tune with the self than with the ego. They need to be organized and often set up a time regularly every day to go to their job and treat it like a job, even if they treat themselves like a corporation. They don't talk about their ideas or seek advice and overly show their artwork to get, critiques and advice. I mean, some is okay, but when you talk about it too much, you either get scared of it or make it overly precious. And so to try daily, whether or not you fail. He says, and I quote, "In the end, the question can only be answered by action. Do it or don't do it." He says that those that have gifts really need to share it. And he says, don't cheat us of your contribution. Give us what you've got.